Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Kidney Coach YouTube channel. I am naturopath Fiona Chin, co-founder of Kaigenesis and co-author of the Kidney Disease Solution. And I'm joined today by the wonderful Emily Cahill. Emily is a registered nurse. She works at one of the large cardiovascular neurological wards here in Melbourne, Australia. And she's also a naturopath at the Wellness Guru with me, and she specialises in all things kidney disease, oncology, and neurological stuff like MS. And Emily also is our resident kidney naturopath. So if you're following the Kidney Disease Solution and need some tailored support, Emily is your person that can do some individualized consulting with you. She also writes our Facebook posts, as well as half the blogs that you see on the website. She's an invaluable member, and we've chained her to the table so she can't go anywhere because we can't afford to lose her. No, we love Emily. She's a wealth of information, so we're very grateful to have her as part of the team. So thank you for joining me today, Emily. You can unshuck your chains so nobody can see them, and so you can, yeah. So I thought today we would talk about a case study that you have, because people find those really, really useful, just about what they did and how they're going and things like that. So did you want to run us through the patient's background history and case study, and I'll ask questions as we go?
Yeah. So this is a 65-year-old female. Mm-hmm. She had a nephrectomy about 10 years ago for renal cell carcinoma.
So maybe just describe to people what a nephrectomy is.
So she had cancer in one of her kidneys, and so she'd had her kidney removed. So she had one kidney functioning. In terms of other medical history, she also had high blood pressure. She was type 2 diabetic and had high cholesterol. So she was on a few medications, metformin for her diabetes, perindopril for her blood pressure, and she was on a statin for her cholesterol. Mm-hmm. So I saw her first in July of 2020. She had purchased the program some months earlier and had been implementing some of the dietary changes, but hadn't started on any of the supplements at that stage. So when I first saw her on her last bloods, her eGFR was 35. It had been sort of slowly trending down in the previous few years. And yeah, so she was obviously looking for a way to stabilize or to reduce any further progression and to improve her kidney function. She, at that stage, also her HbA1c, so that's a marker of blood glucose over about 2 to 3 months, was 7.2, so a little bit higher than I'd like to see it. And otherwise, her bloods were pretty unremarkable. Her red cells and her hemoglobin and all of that was fine. So it's mostly just the kidney function and her blood glucose control at that point. So at that stage, I recommended she started on our kidney tea, which we recommend in the program. She was a little bit hesitant about starting on too many supplements. So we just sort of, I probably didn't start her on as much as what I would usually recommend. So at that point, we popped her on astragalus, Romania, CoQ10, lipoic acid, vitamin C, and a multivitamin. And she had been taking vitamin D, so we continued that as well. Obviously spoke a bit more about diet. She had still been having red meat, so I recommended she pull that from her diet and focus a bit more on increasing alkaline foods as well.
Okay. And you said her eGFR was 35, right?
35, yeah.
Okay. And that was with the one kidney?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I saw her next, how many months later? What's that? In March 2021. So about 8 months later.
Yeah.
And and I forgot to mention previously, her blood pressure was sitting, like it would sort of sit above, somewhere between 130, 150. So then with the perindopril, so that was something else that we wanted. So blood pressure and blood sugars was running a bit high as well. So
sorry to interrupt you again, sorry. Because I'm just going back because you've got such a special interest in oncology. What did you think the driver was with the kidney cancer? Because it's not a really super common cancer. Did you have a thought around what caused that or the lead up to that for her?
She had been a smoker.
Okay. That does increase it by quite a bit from memory, right?
Yeah. So that does definitely increase the risk. She wasn't sure about exposure to things like pesticides and heavy metals and things like that, but I did wonder whether that she grew up in a farming district, so I did wonder whether that also may have contributed to it.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Sorry, just curious out of that bit.
So next time I saw her in March after she'd had some more bloods. So at that point, her eGFR was 43. Oh. So I'm up from 35. Her HbA1c had dropped to 6.9. Her blood sugars were better controlled, which obviously we saw that in the HbA1c, and her BP as well was sitting more consistently, sort of generally below 130. She had an angiogram between the two appointments, which showed that she had some narrowing in some arteries in the heart. They were in an area that would be very difficult to stent. So at that point, at that stage, that wasn't an option. So that was also something that she wanted to focus on as well.
Okay.
So I just made a couple of changes then. I added in some fish oil, particularly for that cardiovascular disease risk and to assist with the narrowing. And I also added in vitamin K2 as well. So
for what reason did you put K2 in?
I popped the K2 in. So when people have plaque in the arteries, a lot of it is calcium. So that can lodge into the arteries and start to grow plaque. So vitamin K2 can help to put calcium where it's supposed to be in the body, which is really in the bones. So rather than potentially having calcium lodge in areas where it's not supposed to, it can lodge in other areas apart from blood vessels, but that's one of the places that it can go. I wanted it moving out of there and staying within the bone. So that's why I added in the K2.
Perfect.
And at that point, we swapped it over from the individual herbs and nutrients onto Kidney Prime and Kidney Advance. That way she was taking less tablets in the day, which she was very happy about. And it also meant that we were getting the additional herbs there, and as well as the addition of N-acetylcysteine as well, which I wanted for her too.
Perfect. That was in March, you said, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was in March. Dietary wise, she'd made some good changes. So she was definitely eating more alkaline foods. She dropped the red meat. She dropped dairy. So she was managing well with her diet. She was exercising a bit more as well. And we also had her doing some breathing exercises and meditation. So she added that into her day, which was really good. And then the last time I saw her, which was in November, so that was 6 months later. And her eGFR had come up again. So eGFR had come up to 48.
Perfect. For one kidney. Can't be happier than that. That's pretty much normal for one kidney, right?
Yeah. And her HbA1c had dropped a little more, so it had come down to 6.7. Blood pressure was still well controlled. Blood sugars were better. One thing that I did notice on these blood tests is an anion gap had gone up. An anion gap is an equation that can be done using your electrolytes. So it's typically sodium, potassium chloride, and bicarbonate. And it gives us an indication of the acid-base balance of the body, so how alkaline or acidic the body is. It had been higher than I like it to be all the way through, but it had gone up from previous bloods. So I kept her on the same supplements, so still taking the Kidney Prime, Kidney Advance, fish oil, K2, vitamin D, vitamin C, and a multivitamin. But I added in an alkalizing powder at that point. So I used just a magnesium citrate alkalizing powder.
Great.
And that was the last time I saw her. So we're waiting. She should be having some more bloods this month.
Great. So yeah, we'd just be looking for that anion gap to come down. It's interesting because the higher the number when we're looking at acid alkaline, the more alkaline you are, but with an anion gap, it's the lower number it's around the other way. So the lower number is more alkaline. So I normally like people around the 8 mark. I don't know where you like people, but that's where I like them. So, but most people, head from about 13 all the way up to 20, which 20, an anion gap of 20 should be under almost metabolic acidosis. So if we ever see patients like that, we're often just getting everything else checked. So to make sure that they're okay. So amazing. Good job, Em. So yeah, and for people that don't know, obviously we want eGFRs over 90, but when you've got one kidney, you basically half it. So and eGFR of 45 and over is pretty, it's normal for one kidney. I think you can get it up to, I don't think I've ever seen it over 50 for one kidney. I don't know if you have, maybe 52, I think I saw on one thing, which would be the equivalent of 2 working kidneys at greater than 90. So yeah, which is awesome. Great. I love a good case study. So hopefully that gives you all a bit of information about how we can then really tailor a program. So this patient that started with Emily was doing what we call the core or pillar 1, where they're doing vitamin C and a multivitamin, a bit of fish oil, and those major herbs. And so then Emily just took that and really tweaked it with the K2 and other bits and pieces that she put in there just to make sure that this patient was getting the optimal results, which is why we offer that service, because that's how we work as naturopaths, to treat the person and not the disease. So we always like to be able to tweak things for people. So hopefully you found this interesting. If you want to know more about the Kidney Disease Solution, which is the program that this patient was following, head over to www.kidneycoach.com and you'll find all the information there about the team, about us, and about that program. You'll see heaps of amazing free information on there that Emily and I write each week in between our schedules. I need to write a blog this week. And yeah, and if you like this information, make sure you hit like. If you've got any comments, put them in below and I'll be sure to get back to you. And make sure you hit subscribe and then you'll get notified anytime we create new content. So in the meantime, thank you for being part of the community. We hope you found this useful. Emily, thank you for sharing that with us today. And until next time, we'll see you then. Bye.